that there wasn't a net cost to the health service or to the taxpayer in any way, would you not think we need to worry about it?
Yeah, so I tell you, where I came out was, first of all, looking at the whole system, like the problems of the food system. There are two big problems. One is the harm it's doing to the environment. The other is the harm it's doing to health. They're not actually connected. People trying to connect them, but they're not very strongly connected. On the health side, I was convinced, and you can go into we've kind of toed and froed on evidence, you've been very helpful on that. I was convinced that there was a big problem in terms of the scale of the harms that it was causing and the cost to the NHS, and that this was caused by our appetite, our evolved appetite, which particularly in some of us responds enthusiastically towards certain kinds of foods. And not surprisingly, food companies, not because they're malicious or trying to kill children, they've marketed and put more R&D into those foods, and that's made a certain proportion of people eat more. Companies will put more money in response, and you get a kind of reinforcing circle, a vicious circle.
What kind of foods are we talking about?
So it's interesting. I think the evidence is unclear on this. So some people would say it's ultra processed. I think where the evidence is pretty clear is that calorie dense foods, low in insoluble fibre, which most ultra processed foods happen to be, you seek them out. You eat more quickly just because they're calorie dense, and they satiate you less. And so you
give me some examples. I know people watching will be thinking, what is ultra-processed food, as opposed to processed food?
So basically, the biggest issues are
sweets,
cake, sweets, chocolate, biscuits, ice cream, biscuits. Those are like, and then you're moving down into a level now where there are some kind of foods that are very sweet, kind of some of the processed foods. So some sauces, curries, etc., now very sweet and very sugary. So they'd move into that. But basically, it's not rocket science. I think it may be the case. So ultra processed. Some people say it's the processing that causes the problems, or some of the problems.
How would that work?
Well, there are two ways in which people think it works. So what is definitely the case is, if you look at, there's some amazing work being done by an American physicist called Laszlo Barabasi. If you take an ultra-processed lasagna, so one that's been made in a factory, probably at slightly higher pressures, heats, but also with ingredients chosen to go through the process well to be cost-effective, and you make exactly the same lasagna at home.
With exactly the same ingredients?
Well, no one's done it with exact same ingredients, but very similar ingredients. At the high level, they can have exactly the same chemical composition. But there are about 23,000 chemicals that go into foods, and at a lower level, their chemical signature can look very different. But who knows? Well, at the moment, that's kind of the cut. That's where the ultra-processed people think it's going to go, that there is some relationship with the biome inside your stomach and the complexity of food. But none of that is yet proven. What is the case is that the processed stuff tends to be more calorie dense, more sugary.
But a lot of the ones you mentioned there, biscuits and cakes, for example, they've been around for centuries. People make them in their homes. Are you saying that they're worse if they've been ultra-processed rather than just cooked by somebody?
No, not necessarily.
So that's just a matter of lots of sugar, basically.
Exactly, that's just a matter of but there are now 20. You can buy 28 different kinds of Kit Kat in this country, and in a normal supermarket, you might be able to buy 2 kinds of cabbage if you were lucky. The point is there is more money to be made.
You could provide 50 different types of cabbage.
You could, but there's not the money.
There's one type of Kit Kat, and I'll still be buying the Kit Kat. Yeah. This is not what's nudging me.
Exactly. So the point is that is where the money's going, understandably. And that has got to a stage where it's causing problems. And actually, if you talk to the CEOs, there's a real difference between talking to the kind of Food and Drink Federation. I don't know, do you know Ian Wright? So who I really like, he's great. But his job is to deny that problem. If you talk to the CEOs privately of pretty much all of the retailers, and in fact the fast-moving consumer goods companies, people who make Mars bars, Kit Kats, etc., they recognise the problem. So they recognise that they are being sucked into providing more and more of that stuff. And they don't think, they say, well, if we stop doing it, then someone else would just do it.
Well, if you enjoyed that conversation, why not watch one of these other videos? And while you're here, remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss out on a single IEA broadcast.